Hey guys, how's it going? KRIPP'S here. Today we are going to do not a Battlegrounds video, even though those are going to be the next hundreds and hundreds of videos and the ones before, and probably one later today. But today we're going to kick it off with a Path of Exile video. This is not sponsored. Path of Exile is this game. Those of you that have tuned into the stream regularly enough have seen me play it. Here, I will just jump into a map while I talk about a few random things in the intro. This is a T16 map. Mods doesn't matter. I was leveling, and I did level to 100 doing blank maps, like not white maps. I just never really looked at the map mods because it doesn't really matter. It's a strong character and easy peasy. Just run through content. I'll explain how the character works in just a moment. Now, so POE, Path of Exile, the game you're looking at right now, this is about as ridiculous as it looks, because this is maximum juice, as they say, or just about. And it can look confusing, but ultimately it is a game that's pretty similar. It is actually based off of a lot of the mechanics on the original Diablo 2, which is a game you guys are pretty familiar with. This is a game that I play often off-stream, but I also play a good bit on-stream when they have a new expansion. And a new expansion for them, they're called like leagues. So when they have like a new league, I will play. Now in this league that came out, I don't know, like 2+ months ago, I made one of my coolest characters ever, and that is the character that you are currently witnessing right now. And I wanted to highlight it because I think it will inspire some people to make builds in different ways, because it is one of the most unique characters I have ever made, and it is also possibly the strongest character I have ever made. And that is a pretty big deal, because Path of Exile is not really a game where there's too many undiscovered things. Even though the options are almost limitless, they are explored by certain build hunters and theory crafters and all that, like myself. So I will be playing the next League 3.18 whenever that comes out. I imagine sometime in May. Don't know exactly what I'm playing, but I wanted to make this video, and the main reason why you don't see a whole lot of Path of Exile videos on this channel is because the YouTube algorithm really discourages people from uploading content that is not their regular content. And it's very unfortunate that it works that way, but that's how it works. How it works is if I upload something that doesn't have quite the same amount of traction as my regular content, or is different from it, it won't be recommended on my other videos very often. It won't be recommended to people in their sub feeds, because the subscriber feeds on YouTube are actually parsed through some form of algorithm. It's not just like you see every video that someone posts. You might, if you watch like all of their videos, at length, the YouTube guys will assume that you want to watch all the videos they post. But if you don't, it goes through some kind of algorithm, and through this algorithm, you get completely wrecked if you don't upload similar content and get similar views across your videos. So that's why you don't see very many Path of Exile videos on this channel, despite it being probably the game I play second most to Battlegrounds. But at the same time, I don't ask this of normal Battlegrounds videos, because, ultimately, I want you guys to enjoy yourself. I don't feel like you guys really owe me anything. But if you do like Path of Exile content, it would mean a lot if you share, if you like, if do the whole shebang. If you do that, it would be very nice. So now that the map is done, I will go kind of like in a two-parter on this video. I will give you guys kind of an over-the-top build introduction to this, and then I'm going to do like a second part, which is super in-depth for you theory crafters out there, because there's certainly some cool stuff at play. So there's two things. If you just want to get right into it, I do have the build in the form of a Path of Building paste bin link in the description. I'll have the Path of Building app as well. It is this thing. It basically allows you to simulate builds. This is Infernal Legion off Animate Guardian. I tried to include gear that is very close to what I actually have. The number is probably quite exact. I did have to do a few custom things because there are some items that don't fully work because it is some very obscure mechanics that makes this build function. So the main source of damage is Infernal Legion off the Animate Guardian, and the Animate Guardian is using random scepters that like a Righteous Fire character would use, for example, minus fire resist aura, Carcass Jack for a lot of area and a fair bit of area damage. Gloves with fire damage over time multiplier, as well as some life regeneration rate, as well as, it's pretty important, the reduced effect of chill and shock on you. That is important. I'll go over that in a second here. And with boots, it's pretty similar, but also a essence of hysteria that is not even known by Path of Building as of right now. I don't know if I actually have one. No, I do not actually have one right now. But fortunately, I am an expert when it comes to minion builds in Path of Exile, and I know to take a screenshot of the items that go on my Animate Guardian, because sometimes I might get a better one later on. So we're talking about this thing here. Drops burning ground while moving, dealing 2,500 fire damage per second for 4 seconds. This is of the essence. I think this is essence of hysteria. There's a lot of powerful mechanics to get essences through the new Atlas and all that kind of stuff. So it is not a big deal to get some of those, but it's pretty important to get that along with some movement speed, because it's pretty important that your Animate Guardian is beside you in this build. And why do you want that? That's because the main scaling, actually almost all of the damage, comes from the Infernal Legion gem, which we're doing our best to scale through many different mechanics. And it does 3,500, and that is scaled to 1,000,000. So the boots do another 2,500, which comes out to about 700,000, a little bit over. But it's pretty tricky because the Animate Guardian has to move, then the boss has to move on top of it. So it's not like real DPS, but sometimes it does hit the boss. So how much damage does this build do? The answer is enough. I have done just about all of the game, all the parts I care to do anyway, and level to 100, I was doing the craziest maps to level to 100. Literally people that sometimes actually level to 100 POE told me this is not the way it's done. I was doing beyond maps, whatever, is the kind of stuff that even people with headhunters in softcore don't do. Well, I did it. I am playing solo self-found, so the gear that I have certainly could still be improved quite a bit. Namely, if you can get a Forbidden Shaco with a level 35 Infernal Legion, your damage will be quite a lot higher than my current setup. But unless you have that exact item, I do have a pretty strong setup. So, yes, before we get into the gear, which is a bit more of a detailed part of the guide, I just kind of want to go over the skills. So we have Animate Guardian, and it's important to know that we are not playing Necromancer, which is pretty peculiar, because typically minion builds are played as a Necromancer, because Necromancer has a keystone that gives them +2 to minion skills, and a lot of minion skills don't have a lot of other tags, which means that it's hard to give them gem levels. At the same time, gem levels for minion skills are huge. They have very powerful damage scaling from levels, but also they have health scaling, so they also get a defensive aspect. Normally, if you boost the gem levels of, like, I don't know, Fireball, you just get the damage portion, and most skills don't scale quite as well as minions, even on the damage aspect. But they also scale the health, and health in a way gives damage, because if you're alive, you're there to do damage. A lot of different formulas, like chill, like freeze, like stun, function off of the total health. So actually just having more health on your minions, it doesn't give them, like, you know, damage on paper, but when you're actually playing the game, it does actually give them damage as well. So that's why almost all minion builds are Necromancers. This is an exception. This is an occultist. The reason why I picked occultist is because, well, curses are pretty powerful with this build. It is a damage over time summoner. Profane Bloom really helps with the clear. That's why the clear on this character is unbelievably good. The Withering Presence is pretty nice. We get some free Chaos Resist, and we hinder nearby enemies, which can be pretty nice. We wither nearby enemies. We hinder them through minion mechanics, so we actually get the reduced damage taken over time. And the reduced life regeneration rate isn't too bad. Overall, it's a build that focuses on clear. The single target damage is not outstanding, but because we use, where is it here? Predator support. Predator is this thing here. You basically mark a target, and the minions that are linked with Predator all just go and attack the target until it expires in 8 seconds. So you can literally stay away 2 screens from a boss, and the boss will eventually die. This build has very good defenses, very good sustain, so while it's not a fast bosser, unless the boss requires you to have high DPS to make it significantly easier, like Maven or something like that, it's actually a good bosser. It's a low damage, but it's a good bosser. It can do the bosses. It just takes a little bit longer, but the incredibly good map clear does make up for that, at least in my opinion. So the reason why we're not Necromancer is because Infernal Legion is a support gem. The Necromancer main skill, the +2 minion skill gems, does not apply to this because this is not a skill gem. A skill gem is a skill. It is something that you use. There are no skills that are also supports. Actually, don't quote me on that. There's probably 1 or 2. But this is not one of them. This is a support skill. If I had +2 to minion skills, it would increase the level of Infernal Legion support by 0 levels. So even though we have like +1 to all skill gems and all that kind of stuff, that is not that important for the damage aspect of the build. That's why we are playing Occultist and not Necromancer. We have Swift Affliction, we have Elemental Army, and we have Meat Shield. Now, normally, these 2 here, Elemental Army and Meat Shield, are not the best damage gems you can have, but the reason why we use them is because Infernal Legion has the Animate Guardian take 40% of its health as fire damage per second all the time. If your Animate Guardian dies, well, he's dead. You lose all the gear you gave to him. Now, people are going to ask, it's like, well, why doesn't your Animate Guardian die? Isn't that going to be a problem? Yes, sometimes he goes near death. And this build makes it a little bit easier because the Animate Guardian setup is in the weapon, which means you can use your weapon swap key. See the Animate Guardian, this one? And he's gone. Okay, so it's easy to de-summon him. Usually in minion builds, you see people like log out or something like that. In this build, if he's taking quite a bit of damage, you just get him right out of there, and you still do some damage. Like I killed Cirrus without using Animate Guardian at all, because I noticed that the Corrupting Blood was doing quite a lot of damage to him, and I couldn't afford him dying. So I killed him using my Spectres, my Zombies, and this trigger level 20 Spectral Spirits when equipped. These guys are effectively completely invincible Raging Spirits. And they do a lot less damage, but they still do damage with the Infernal Legion support. The idea is that you have a wider coverage, and you have a little bit of extra damage from their melee hits, because for single target, you can really take whatever you can get with this type of build. And I do recommend that you get a bow like this one. I got the bow with Porcupine. It's important that you get a short bow because it makes it much easier to get the colors. And you use the Essence to get a suffix for Spectral Spirits when equipped. You can craft a bow like this by having full suffixes. So you have, I think 3 suffixes, and then you do suffixes cannot be changed, and then you do 3 suffixes, and then you do cannot roll, or no, 2 suffixes, and then you do cannot roll attack mods. And then the only attack mod, the only non-attack mod as a prefix is the level of socketed gems. And then you do the multi-mod. Okay, and there's a few ways to end up with that. I know it sounded a bit confusing. I'm not going to go over crazy into the depth of crafting, but yes, it is not super hard to make bows like this. I made this bow on like day 3 or 4 of the league in solo self-found. You don't have to have the Spectral Spirits, but it does help. What also helps is the raised specters. So getting raised specter to gem level 25 is a pretty big deal. That's why we're using a +3 minion helm and +1 from the amulet. That is the main reason. It helps with damage and survivability in many different ways, but that is the main reason why we have that, to get an extra specter. There are 4 specters. They're all different, and they have different aspects to them. The specters that I use, if you want the names, it is in the POE link below. So specters. First one is Tukohama Vanguard. Tukohama Vanguard casts a totem, and that totem casts Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray gives a -25 fire resist debuff in the form of exposure. So that is your exposure debuff. It is 25%. Which is as high as it goes for an occultist. It's a very powerful specter. It also does respectable damage, which is pretty good. The next specter that I recommend you use is the Carnage Chieftain. The Carnage Chieftain is the monkey that spams frenzy charges. Frenzy charges give attack speed, movement speed, all that crap that you don't need, but they also give a little bit more damage as a damage multiplier, and it's nice to just have one. We don't use power charges because we're a damage over time summoner. I use the Goatman Fire Eater. I have not seen anyone use the Spectre. It's actually a fantastic Spectre. I think it is a Spectre that you can actually make a build around. It does really high damage with Fireball. It casts Molten Shell, and it also has an AoE taunt, which is really good. So you take a little bit less damage in the form of less hits. I have the Predator support, so I can Predator along with the Animate Guardian and walk away if I need to. It has the meat shield because I want them around me and I need them to be tanky, and it has combustion. The Goatman Fire Eater does a fireball, and the fireball is the largest source of ignite. It also has a bonus chance to ignite. I think it's 25%. So it's very deliberate that I have the combustion gem there, because my specters are the ones that are going to have the highest ignite. So they will apply the enemies ignited by supported skills have -10% fire resistance as well, which is very nice. And the fourth specter, which I think is the least important, is the Wicker Man. The Wicker Man has like a righteous fire aura. It doesn't do that much damage, but it does stack with the other effects. And he has a Molten Strike skill. And the Molten Strike skill is very good because it does a lot of hits at once. And this is not a minion build that scales like attack speed or anything like that. So you're actually not getting that many hits, even though I'm using an army of zombies. So it does help to get up things like Hinder and Taunt and Blind and all that kind of shit. All right, other stuff. Infernal Cry, that is to do the Covered in Ash debuff. It also, if you have a lot of monsters, even though the Occultist has the Corpse pops as you were watching the Chaos pops, that is 25% chance. So the other 75 are not exploding when they die. With Infernal Cry, they will explode when they die, which is adding to the power of the clear, and does actually help, because if there's a lot of monsters near one that has a lot of health, like a boss, if you Infernal Cry, which you should be doing just for the Covered in Ash debuff, it will just obliterate the boss in some of those cases, and it's very fun to see. Defiance Banner and Grace is the main form of defense when combined with Ghost Shrouds. Ghost Shrouds give you energy shield back equivalent to 3% of your evasion. Now, when we are doing a map, my evasion is 70,770. And that is as a result of these 5 evasion passives alone. How does that work? Well, we have a lot of aura effect. We are using gear that has a lot of evasion on it, and that defense is unbelievably good. It is one of the tankiest characters I have ever played, and I think it's evident with how quickly I leveled to 100. I was getting over 30 million experience an hour doing some of the hardest maps that you can do without anything like a party, a headhunter, trade league, Mageblood, nothing. Just regular character. Actually, a character that most people would regard as a meme, if not for me doing it. We have Malevolence, because again it's a damage over time summoner with Generosity for a little bit more strength. We have Chaos Golem, because we do not have a lot of physical damage mitigation, and it's good to have some, so you don't get one-shotted by the big hits. You get hit very infrequently, so it's not really a big deal, but it's nice to have. We have Raise Zombies, just so we can have a bit more bodies, and we have them to put up Feeding Frenzy, which is nice to have because you get a little bit more power. And I'm using Divergent Purifying Flame. One of the main reasons why I'm using Purifying Flame is to get the Curse on Hit flammability going. That is important because you don't actually do anything. This is a build that doesn't actually use a whole lot of buttons of any real kind. And that's fine. That's fine. The Divergent version gives you increased damage taken, so it's actually a bit of a buff, and it adds life regeneration, which can help keeping your minions alive. I use Elemental Weakness with Blasphemy because the Elemental Weakness quality bonus gives additional minus resistance, while the Flammability on hit gives you like Ignite chance, which is pretty much useless for me. I have Skitterbots with Unbound Ailments because it's very good to have the Chill. It's a defensive and offensive aura, Flame Dash, and Convocation. Not that crazy of a setup when it comes to the secondary minions, but overall it's very effective. I do have capped spell suppression as well, and that is entirely from my gear. This has been made very easy from the fact that you can use the new Eldritch currency. So like for this helmet, I got the prefixes that I wanted, and then I just constantly rolled suffixes until I got ones that were pretty good, like Chance to Suppress and all that. It is good to get the drop Scorch Ground while moving, lasting 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. I have one on my Animate Guardian's boots as well, which is very good. For the belt, I have the Darkness Enthroned. I used all of the Uber belt enchant labyrinth. I think I did like 8 of them. I didn't die in a single one. Again, testament to the build. But the enchant I was going for is the enemies withered by you have minus 6% resistances, because that is really good for this build. But didn't get it. I got the Consecrated Ground one instead, which is pretty decent anyway. Overall, do I recommend this build? I would not recommend it unless you have played minion builds before and you know what you're doing with Animate Guardians, because I think a lot of people are going to have their Animate Guardians die playing this build. But overall, if you know how to handle these things, if you know how to play with a not particularly invincible Animate Guardian that's also taking damage against this normal regen, yes, this is an incredibly good build. But with me, every time there's a new league, I play something I hadn't played before, so this is the last time I'm playing this character, but it has been quite a blast. Now, in this last part of the video, I'll just quickly go over a few of the details, how I got some of the gear pieces, and a few recommendations, and basically just going over some of the things that I have learned. So first off, I want to go over armor versus evasion. I do think that evasion is so much better than armor for most characters that are not being hit repeatedly. If you are playing like a frontline character and you're getting hit repeatedly, you should probably look towards getting armor and evasion, and then if you have to choose between armor or evasion, maybe armor is the best choice, especially if you have additional maximum resistances. For a character that has minions tanking for it, that can move quickly, that clears quickly, so you're just not getting hit all that often, I think evasion is so much better, especially if you can get a fair amount of energy shield using Ghost Dance. It is so strong. You do want to get a Glorious Vanity, which gives you the Corrupted Soul, so it's a gain 15% maximum life as energy shield, and then you get the enchant on the chest, which is gain 10% of maximum life as energy shield. So this 2600 energy shield, if you look, my gear doesn't actually have energy shield on it. 0 energy shield. So it's quite a lot. That's because we have the converted energy shield from life, and a lot of the energy shield life passives, well, these if I didn't put it there. And I think these as well. Yeah. They give a normal amount of life in addition to energy shield. See, like 5% life is fair, and then 4%. So we have that. We have a lot of int, like 300. So we actually get a decent amount of energy shield percent that increases that 25% converted into a little bit extra. This is a life pool of, what is that, 9,300, which is really good. And the Ghost Dance makes all of my evasion effective, so I recover like 1,400, I believe, per, I don't know, something like that, quite a bit. But a lot of the damage that is going into my character is going into health as well. However, because of Blood Drinker, I recover 2% of life on kill, and the fact that I'm playing an occultist with Profane Bloom pops, which actually do a significant amount of the killing. And if you're curious, yes, the original Profane Bloom hits from your minions do trigger the explode because it's you or your minions. But then when they trigger, the Profane Blooms actually do a lot of the killing. So you yourself are getting a ton of the killing blows. I have done no regen maps, and the way that I do no regen maps, I don't put on a mana potion. I just don't use any skills. I just walk through the map. That's it. And Blood Drinker heals all the health because it's a recover on kill effect. And Ghost Dance takes care of any hits that I take. But honestly, I've done entire maps where I do not get hit even once. So that is how this character works out. I also really like the fact that evasion makes it so you don't need to invest in crit mitigation. A lot of people don't know this, but actually when you are attacked, your evasion rolls once again if you will be crit. So I have like effectively 95% chance to evade if target is blinded, and a lot of the time it will be. If not, it's just a tad lower. And then that will apply again to a crit. So I get critically hit almost never, and I get hit almost never. So you don't really have to worry about that. It really alleviates a lot of things. It's a lot easier to stack defenses with evasion versus armor for a character like this. The gloves were a pretty big piece. This +2 level to socket AoE gems. The way that I crafted these gloves is I got the 3 perfect suffixes, so I got the tier 1 chaos resist, the tier 1 spell damage, and another resist. I ended up getting lightning resist 41, good enough. So what I did is I did lock suffixes, and I used the veiled orb. You can use the veil orb, then craft something, and you can make it so it's like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 area to get the +2 socket AoE gems. The reason this is really nice is because it adds a lot of evasion when you hit Grace and Defiance Banner. It adds a little bit of damage if you hit Malevolence, but you also get the 10% increased area of effect, which is going to work off of your Profane Blooms, and that is pretty important because if you have a curse on hit ring, your Profane Bloom procs can cascade off screen. So I do have the Blasphemy, which triggers the original Profane Blooms, but afterwards, the flammability, if the area is large enough and the density of the monsters is large enough, it can chain on and on and on and clear screens away. Usually it doesn't, but it can, and any kind of area of effect increase helps with that quite a bit. All right. I already talked about the helmet. Nothing too special there. For the amulet, I think if you get an Ashes of the Stars, great. Use that. It will alleviate a few points on the skill tree, and you wouldn't have to get a chest as crazy as mine that I rolled using the essence that gives increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. Once again, I was spamming that essence until I got a decent spell suppression roll. Once I did, I finished off the prefix crafting using the Eldritch Currents. It's so powerful for crafting. And you do want to get the Grace has increased aura effect for this build for sure. The other one, I was trying to get gain endurance charges every few seconds because you can increase the endurance charges with Jewel implicits, and in the Darkness Enthroned, those get amplified. So if you get an endurance charge every 13 seconds, you can actually have that essentially keep up your endurance charges endlessly, and I would get this point. It's a 1 point +1 endurance charge. So that would be really, really nice. Because again, when you do take a massive physical hit, that is when you can run into a little bit of trouble. But again, you're just not going to hit all that often. So it's not a huge deal, but that's what I was going for, and I just didn't quite get there. It's solo self-found. In solo self-found, you don't always quite get there. Also, I didn't get an Ashes of the Stars to drop. Maybe next league, but I got this very good amulet. The +1 skills is important for upping your defenses, the survivability of your minions, and having level 25 Raise Spectre overall. For the rings, you're just looking for resists and life. You do want a curse on hit with flammability. You can get a curse on hit with elemental weakness, but it is not as effective as flammability because what I mentioned, the quality bonus on elemental weakness is stronger. Now, if you get certain, alt quality gems, maybe that can change. Speaking of which, Animate Guardian has some really powerful alt quality gems, alt quality qualities, I guess. I actually have them. So one of them gives the Animate Guardian increased area for quality. Another one gives the Animate Guardian increased life percent per quality, which you think are like both really, really good. And they are. I would not say it's wrong to use either of those, but I ended up going with the increased movement speed because this character actually runs through content really fast, and even though my Animate Guardian has a lot of increased movement speed benefits, you see that it's lagging behind. This is with Meat Shield, okay? If you do not have this 40% movement speed on your Animate Guardian gem, it can be a problem because even though you might be running really fast through the map, if your Animate Guardian is half a screen away, your defenses of killing everything instantly aren't there. If you kill stuff like 2 seconds after you start running through it, that is more dangerous than it dying instantly. So I actually really like the base Animate Guardian gem. I also wanted to get the level 21 gem, which gives it a little bit of extra survivability. I do have the other alt quality gems, both of them in fact, because I did a lot of heists this league. But I figured that a level 21 with the movement speed, especially because I don't have Ashes of the Stars, that's probably going to be better. All right. Infernal Legion, I've seen people mimicking this build using other Infernal Legions. Don't do that. Okay. Infernal Legion has minions from supporter skills take 20% reduced fire damage. That is a really big deal because they're taking a lot of fire damage from the gem itself, and that also applies to, well, regular hits. And fire damage is one of the strongest. For boots, I crafted them the same way as the gloves. I went for 3 strong suffixes, so I got tier 1 chaos resist with tier 1 spell damage, and I ended up getting a strong cold resist roll, and I used keep suffixes with a veiled orb to try to get a movement speed upgrade. I ended up getting the cannot be chilled. I'm still using the cannot be frozen. I would have liked to get this freeze duration to 100% reduction through implicits, and I was 1 jewel away, but didn't quite get there. So that is another upgrade. I would have gone with probably this one, avoid projectiles that have chained. Believe it or not, I don't think I've ever died to projectiles being chained on me, just because the build kills regular monsters at an incredible rate. And against bosses, I can just stay really far away. So not a big deal. But I do think it is a little bit better. So that's just one thing I was going for. And again, it's solo self-found. I didn't quite get there. The quiver took me a really long time to craft. Most importantly, you're looking for 3 things on a quiver. You're looking for minions have increased movement speed, which can only be obtained with an essence. That is the minion essence. As high as you can go, the better. You want max life roll. 99 life is the max. And you want open prefix to craft evasion and energy shield, because you use both of those things, and that's really nice. The rest, this is a really good quiver. I rolled this. Okay, so first I tried to get 3 good suffixes on a Shaper quiver. I'll explain in a second. So I was rolling with essences, and I wanted to get Chaos Resist. I have like 90 Chaos Resist character, by the way. So I wanted to get Chaos Resist with another good suffix on the essence roll. I ended up getting 41 fire, the movement speed, and I had an Ashling on a Syndicate, because I was doing constant Syndicate in this league. So I just decided that it wasn't good enough. I think it had like 9 lightning resist, by the way. So I was thinking like, the quiver's just not really good enough. Let me give it a shot. Right, let me give it a shot, because high enough fire, and I didn't have anything else to use it on, because again, it's solo self-found. So I used it, and it replaced the bad suffix with the cold and chaos, which is very lucky. And then, because the Shaper quiver, the only speed prefix is the movement speed, the player movement speed. Now, this is a tier 2, it goes up to 10%. So what I did is, I locked suffixes and re-roll including a speed modifier through Harvest. With the suffixes locked. So it takes 2 exalts to do that each time. Each time you do that, you will get the increased movement speed. And I was trying to get it with a strong life roll. I probably would have settled for like 80-something life, especially if it was tier 1 movement speed. I think I wasted like 10 to 14 exalts doing that. It took a long time, but eventually I got it. I got it on stream on the day that I went to level to 100. So there you go. That's the quiver. For the belt, you definitely want Darkness Enthroned because there's some really powerful jewels, and it's really difficult to get all the minion resists without using Darkness Enthroned. You also need to use a whole bunch of Ghastly Eye jewels because a large part of the damage that you do is from this thing. Amannamu's Gaze. Minions have plus 6% damage over time multiplier per ghastly jewel affecting you up to a maximum of plus 30%. This does count itself. So if you use this, you need to have 5 total ghastly jewels, which is 4 other ones other than this one. And it really helps to use the belt. In general, for minion builds, Darkness Enthroned is very, very good. It's probably not going to be like Mageblood or Headhunter, but it is, you know, just one step below that. So I spent a ton to reroll these jewels. These jewels are very good for solo self-found. You do need 10 minion resists on both the ones in the belt as well as a couple otherwise, but just to give you guys an idea. This one has the Blind. Blind is very good. Again, Glorious Vanity. My Glorious Vanity is actually pretty good, by the way. I have a spell block over there. Just random resist, increase effective curses, movement speed, mana regen, and life. You know, nothing crazy. These are garbage. Nothing crazy, but very, very solid. Very solid. If you do not get a good Glorious Vanity, at least for these passives, you can path through here instead of here, but mine are not too bad. Pathing here is good because even though 10 int is usually bad, we're using anatomical knowledge, which would convert those to a little bit of extra health, which is, well, better than nothing. This is a lot of extra health. This is like 12 to 13% extra health, by the way. We're also using another one here for minion resists. This is probably my weakest jewel. There is another modifier. There's enemies withered by you have minus 2% all resists. That one is a really good modifier as well. You can get that. I do have the block nodes, and you cannot play this build without the 8 max all elemental resists. You need this, okay? You need to have as much resistance on your minions as possible, especially on your Animate Guardian, so it doesn't die to the Infernal Legion gem. You want to get that extra Spectre up there. You really want to get these area nodes because the Infernal Legion gem does not have a very big area. You want Spiritual Aid because with the damage over time summoner, you're not scaling crit, you're not scaling crit multi, you're not scaling cast speed or attack speed. You're scaling 2 things. Damage over time multiplier, okay, 3 things. Minus resistances, which is like curse effect and all that kind of stuff, some auras maybe, and just plain minion damage. So the plain minion damage is going to apply to your Chaos Pops as an occultist, and Profane Bloom is going to do a significant amount of damage as a result of that. So overall, the build is pretty refined, I would say. There is not a thing I would change on the skill tree, and I have gone through many, many iterations. I think that about does it. Overall, I'm very proud of this character because prior to this build was generally regarded as a meme, and overall I made it into the strongest character I've ever made. I've had some really strong builds in the past, but I guess I wanted to share this one because it is perhaps the most unusual candidate for it being a really strong build. The way that I see this build in solo self-found is if they nerf like Seismic Trap, Detonate Dead, Explosive Arrow, and like honestly like 1 or 2 other things, this is one of the best builds in the game for clear speed. Animate Guardian on fire. So that's what I got. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, would appreciate the share. And, well, more POE videos are coming, perhaps, if you guys like these enough. But you'll have to wait for next week.